So, hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. In today's episode, I'm joined by Jada Campbell, who is a program manager at Microsoft. So, Jada, how's it going?
Going pretty good. How's it going with you?
I'm doing good as well. So, I guess we can start off. Can you talk to the people like what you do at Microsoft?
I am a program manager at Microsoft. Sometimes program managers are kind of lean into the product side, so that's what I do. I help run the product features on Azure Communication Services, which is a developer platform in which you can put different kinds of communication channels such as chat, telephony, virtual visits into your applications. I'm specifically on the number management side, so anything to do with phone numbers, as well as anything to do with server or client notifications. I've been at Microsoft for about 1.5 years now, so I'm still very early in career. Prior to this, I finished my bachelor's degree at the Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore, Maryland, and got my degree in computer science and piano performance. So I'm super happy with being starting my career here at Microsoft, and I can't wait to see where it takes me.
Oh, yeah, sounds good. Well, I guess let's dive into it. So, one thing I wanted to ask you is that now being in the tech industry, and you mentioned you had a master's as well, a
No,
master's
just
in
a
computer
bachelor's.
science?
Just a bachelor's.
Bachelor's, okay, yeah. So I guess just walk me through that journey, like your experience as a woman, like going through like higher education and then now being in the tech industry. Like how has being a woman impacted that, like positively or negatively?
So I would actually say that my sort of career in tech goes all the way back to high school, actually. I never considered like math and computer science at all. I was very sort of actually very music oriented at the time. And it wasn't until I very just have a very distinct memory of a math teacher in ninth grade on the very first day of high school saying that, hey, I think that you're really good at math, and I want you to join our math competition, high school math competition program. And he was also the teacher for the AP Computer Science course that we had at our school. And he actually made it a point to advocate for more women to be in that course and to actually take those computer science credits so that they can pursue computer science in college. And so quite literally, if it wasn't for this high school math teacher, I would not be here. So that's kind of the very, very start of my career. And it was after doing like 4 years of math and 4 years of computer science and engineering in high school, I went on to complete my computer science degree. And as a woman sort of entering into the computer science degree, there was in the very beginning you were immediately hit with a lot of imposter syndrome. I think just because when you start into programming for the first time, you run into a lot of issues. And I think it's very hard, at least for me, to ask for help. For example, if like my code wasn't working correctly, or if I felt that I didn't understand like an algorithm concept. And so particularly as a woman, I would go into like a lot of the upper level courses where I started going to like I was really interested in machine learning at the time. And as you enter into those upper level courses, like as a junior and senior, the amounts of women that are in those courses get less and less and less than when you enter in the beginning. And so for me, as I started to get into more specialized fields within computer science, I definitely felt that sense of lack of representation and more imposter syndrome. As quite literally, I remember being in like a natural language processing course and I was like the only girl in there. So um, so you tend to find this more in like specialized fields. It's definitely getting better. For example, there are a lot more like women academics in the field of machine learning and artificial intelligence, and it's getting better. But that's definitely how I felt, especially in academia, which is why I wanted to pivot towards more industry roles, and particularly in product management at Microsoft. And so when I made the pivot to sort of product and program management, I found a lot of support there from other women in product, particularly from other organizations like Rewriting the Code. I was a Rewriting the Code fellow while I was in school and found a lot of resources for product management there. And I was able to take that support system with me and apply for a role at Microsoft. And I've been supported by the women in tech here at Microsoft really, really well. And I take a lot of that with me day to day at work. So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. No, that's really good. So I guess expanding on this, so like reflecting on your personal journey, what do you think are like some of the challenges that women face? I guess perhaps one of them being that imposter syndrome, like feeling that there's not enough of you out there to like connect with and engage with.
I think
So like what's
no, 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 no. I definitely think so. There's definitely this sense of like, well, I feel like imposter syndrome is already like a long-standing problem in the tech industry, regardless of gender. But when you're underrepresented in that field, you definitely feel this sense of like, I should not be here. Like quite literally, I should like historically, women are not in this industry, so I should not historically, based on statistical probability, be here. So there's a lot of there's it's a lot of it's sometimes it's a real psychological battle that coming into work sometimes and feeling that like especially when you're a big decision maker, especially in my field where you have to make big decisions on products and big decisions on features, that imposter syndrome really creeps in, and so it can have a negative impact on your work. So that is definitely a challenge, and I think in order to overcome that challenge, like it has to come from a wider community of not just women but also men too. Like, and having allies that help bring that support and make you feel validated in the decisions that you make within how you move in the tech industry, that I feel can help combat that.
so having some sort of like a mentorship, a mentor as in to guide you. Yeah.
Absolutely. This could come in the form of a mentor. I've had many women mentors throughout my life. I think especially for me as a Black woman in tech, I've also had many Black mentors help guide me and just more make me feel validated in this industry. I think that's where the validation needs to be there, and the support and the encouragement has to be there, in order for essentially giving a platform for women to shine, because that's what I feel that we can do just as well as the men can.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, talking on that point, walk me through your journey. So as you're going through your academics, like your studies, and you've like recently joined a tech company, like do you have some type of like role models or like some women in tech that you admire?
I would say that the women in tech industry that have that I um, definitely help guide me and sort of inspire me. There is a Black woman CVP for Xbox and Microsoft, and so she kind of inspires me as well. But actually, I gain a lot of inspiration, I think, as a woman tech from women leaders that are actually outside the industry in general, because I feel that they help give advice that actually sort of helps me become like me sort of enter my workplace sort of as a boss, if you will, and sort of enter with the leadership skills that I need. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess what do you think? Like, what advice would you give? Like, say there's like a young girl, or even like a woman in her mature years who is just like trying to get into the tech industry. Like, what type of advice would you give? Whether that's for like engineering roles, management roles. Like, what are some of the skills that you've observed in your experience so far that you'd like them to emulate?
You know what I think I've noticed, partially from myself and I think from others, is that we have the skills. Like, so there's no whatever you think that you're doing in terms of whether it's learning how to code for the first time or learning how to run through like product questions or program questions, or learning about how the technical architecture works in order to sell to customers. Like, we have the skills. Like, in terms of like pure technical skills, like we have those. I think it's just more
More of like a self-doubt
yeah,
kind of.
exactly. Like, it really does come from like, because we have this lack of representation, it's quite literally like internal and very personal. But it's a collective feeling that I feel that like women entering this industry, they have this, for lack of a better word, glass ceiling, and So
Yeah. So like limiting their own like confidence, their own like
yeah,
I guess like their own abilities, like doubting themselves,
exactly.
like putting a barrier there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a matter of, I think, putting yourself out there. And for example, like studies have shown that if women feel that they don't meet 100% of the qualifications for a job, they won't apply. And that doesn't apply to men. They'll only apply if they meet like 60 or 70. And so a lot of it comes from feeling that you are not as qualified when you clearly are, if not more qualified than the standards that you bring. So I think it's getting over that I feel that for a younger person that wants to enter this industry, like you can do this. Like they're definitely, when I feel like this surrounded by the people that I work with, I don't doubt in any moment that any woman could ever enter this industry and feel validated and supported and thrive and be successful.
So I guess moving on, is there any type of resource or any type of like opportunity or like a mentorship opportunity, networking opportunity for young women available?
Of course. So if you are in university right now, I would wholeheartedly suggest that you join Rewriting the Code. So Rewriting the Code is, I think, one of the largest, if not the largest, resource for women in tech and for networking. And so they have a plethora of resources. They provide resources for Grace Hopper, which is the largest women in tech conference in the US. And you can also apply to be a fellow as well. And they've really helped me on my journey in the tech industry. So that I would highly recommend.
Yeah, and I'll have that link down in the description below. So if you guys want to check it out, you can check it out there. And I guess moving on, I wanted your thoughts on why do you think it is important for a company to have a diverse workforce, to like have one of its priorities for a company? Why is it important for them to prioritize like diversity?
So I believe that, as well as like the tech industry is kind of having a revolution, right? AI is making a huge push towards possibilities that we cannot even possibly imagine. And Microsoft in particular, I'm happy to say, is kind of at the forefront of that. And so when you have a company that builds products like these, which can have lasting implications on a diverse population, it's important that your company reflects the population that you're making these products for. A really good example of this is bias in AI. We have to make sure that the products which have these algorithms in place don't codify the often human biases that we may have towards women, towards people of a certain race, towards people of certain sexualities. So that's why it's increasingly important, not even just from like this is the right thing to do, but rather from a business perspective and a product perspective, that we have a diverse population of people that are making these products for a diverse population to consume.
Okay, yeah. And I guess on that point, like, what are some of the things? I guess one of the things that you mentioned was for a business to think about diversity and inclusion, not from like just a humanitarian standpoint, but just as a business standpoint. So on that note, taking like women in tech in focus, what do you hope to see in terms of like the progress for women in tech in the future? Like, are there certain types of initiatives that you'd like to see?
So I think definitely one thing is one thing that I've noticed. I think just across not even just one company like Microsoft, but across the tech industry, is that there's a lot of diversity, and a lot of gender diversity in the very beginning of career. So like early in career, like maybe 1 to 2 to 3 years. But as you see kind of the leadership roles, kind of between middle management and up, the gender diversity gets less and less and less. So if you like look on like a company tree, for example, like leadership can just be all men all the way up to the top. And what I would like to see is how do we support women, not just in the beginning of the career, but also middle and make sure that they gain those leadership roles, because and make sure that the diversity across all levels and all levels of career and all levels of experience is is reflected. Like there's a 50-50 parity from beginning all the way to leadership positions.
Yeah, so having that support network, not only for like the starting phase of a career, but like leadership, management role, the roles that are responsible for making decision, leading teams.
Exactly. And I think that support network, very importantly, like should not just include women, right? Like there has to be allies, there has to be men, quite frankly, in place that support diversity and inclusion as well, because they are often more often in those positions of power to actually make a difference. So that support women has to include men as well.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense. And I guess one thing we'll end off with, what message, so this is not limited to women in tech, but just women all across the world. This could be something like inspirational, motivational, or anything.
Yeah, sure.
So it's a super open-ended question.
I would just
so
say,
you can go ahead.
I think about and support the women that came before me. Women have been in tech since like the very beginning. We've had women write code that sends people to the moon. Like it was women who came up with those calculations to send astronauts to the moons in the 60s, and they've been here with us ever since. And so on this Women's Day, I thank the women that came before me, and I eagerly await the women that come after me, and I support the women that are with me now. So
yeah, that's a beautiful message. And I think even in tech, I think the first ever program, I believe, was written by Ada Lovelace.
Exactly. Yeah. So like the history,
it all started.
Women have been here. Like we have been here for a long time, and so it's time to have that reflected in the technology that we make now.
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful message. And thank you, everyone. And thank you, Jada, for being on the podcast and talking to me. And I guess the resource that Jada mentioned, I'll have all the links down in the description below so you guys can check it out. And thank you so much for joining me. This was a pleasure talking to you.
Pleasure speaking to you.